Welcome back to the Badass Literature Society, where badasses come together to rate and review novels recommended by you. Hi, I'm Michael.
This is Barbara.
And I'm Lauren.
We're back for another bonus episode.
And this time we're doing another BookTok bonus episode. For those of you unfamiliar, this is a BookTok challenge that can be found on TikTok that we'll be doing over a podcast instead. Obviously, we're going to do a little bit differently since we can't show you. Instead, we'll be telling you. Isn't that right, Michael?
That is right. So I'm going to throw out some categories. We're going to tell you which book fits best into that category for us. So let's get into it. First category, tell me about a book that you wish had a sequel.
So this one's hard because I tend to read a lot of books in series and not standalones. So I think maybe Priory of the Orange Tree, just because I really liked the world and wanted to see more dragons and was slightly disappointed that there weren't so many dragons. So that might be my pick for that one because I can't really think of a standalone book besides that one that we've recently read.
Fair enough. Solid choice. For me, it's another book that we actually read for the podcast, Elantris.
I thought that did have a sequel, though.
It doesn't. So Brandon Sanderson has said that he plans to write a sequel, but as of today and when we read it, there is no sequel. It was one of the only standalone books in.
I didn't realize that. For some reason, I thought. Yeah, sorry. For some reason, I thought that one did have a sequel. That's why.
So no, it sounds like I'm going to be getting my wish, but for now it does not. So I'm going with Elantris.
I went with Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn, and I went with that one because that was a book that really stuck with me when I read it years ago, whenever it first came out. And I just kept thinking that she was going to write the next one because I wanted to know what happens, because if you've read it, I'm not going to spoil it, but like the ending, it has like a big twist at the end. And so I really thought that there was a lot more that could be expanded on. So I just keep waiting. Maybe someday she will make one. But as of right now, it's you're left on a cliffhanger.
Yes, that is true for that one. Are we? I mean, we can probably be a little bit spoilery, right? Because it's a book talk.
That's what I'm going to say. We could be a little spoilery. So fair warning right now, if one of us says the title of a book and your first thought is, oh, crap, I want to read that, then maybe just skip ahead like 30 seconds because we're probably not going to be talking very long about it, but there might be a spoiler.
I feel like for Gone Girl, though, like at this point, if you haven't read the book or seen the movie, like what are you doing with your life?
That's true. I mean, I feel like, most people that haven't read the book at least saw the movie.
Yeah.
It took me a while to see the movie. The books are always better.
For the most part.
I thought the movie for this one was pretty good, actually. I liked
it.
The movie.
It was well cast.
I was going to say it wasn't but it wasn't like exactly like the book, though. But I mean, they never are.
I feel like the movies are always worse than the books. But
I'm in the camp on this one where I probably enjoyed the movie more because I've never read the book. I've just seen the movie.
Then you can't have an opinion.
I know.
I can have an opinion. I can have an opinion about the movie. Yes,
but you just said I feel like I like the movie more. Where you're saying you like the movie, you did.
No, hold on. I said I feel like I went into the movie with a better chance of liking it more than you guys did.
That's nothing of what you said,
Barbara. No. Rewind the track. Let's.
Yeah. We editing and post edit. I will literally copy and paste exactly what you said, put it in this part, and be like, "Ladies and gentlemen, Michael was wrong, and this is exactly what he said."
You will
and then just keep playing it over and over again for like 2 minutes straight.
You will find that what I said is I think I liked the movie more because I never read the book.
Well, you would, because you've never read the book.
But I didn't say I liked it more than the book. I just said I think I liked the movie more because I had never seen the book. Generally, people who've read the book first don't like the movie as much because it's never as good as the book, except for whatever exception Barbara was talking about.
Listen, Michael, it's okay. We all make mistakes.
There was no mistakes made, and that will be proven when Barbara apparently edits this to make it sound like that I made a mistake.
There's no need. I don't need to make you sound like anything.
Anyway, next category. Tell me about your longest book. So for me, I originally thought that it was War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy because War and Peace is an insanely long book. It's like 1,225 pages. I actually looked it up, but it's not. It's not War and Peace. It's actually Oathbringer, which is.
You haven't read that though. That doesn't count.
It's the longest book I own. That's how I took that.
I understand, but this isn't own. This is like longest book you have read. Wouldn't that what you say, Lauren? I'm going by books I've read, not except for the one question that asks, "What's a book you want to read?"
Yeah, I mean, when I get to my answer, I did not go through my books and count the pages. I just put a guesstimate.
So I looked at the bookshelf because I thought it was a book we owned. So I guess I apologize. Oathbringer is the longest book I own, but I have not read it yet. So War and Peace is my longest book if it's Goff one I've read. I have read that book. It's 1,225 pages, and it's probably the longest book I've actually read.
Yeah, I don't know what the page count is on some of the ones that we've read for the
Harry
podcast.
Potter, The Order of the Phoenix, that one's about 80 or 850. It's around the 800 mark. So just because I remember I Googled that one because I thought maybe that might have been one of the longer ones.
See, I knew that Harry Potter, some of the Harry Potter books would have been the longest. And then some of the Stephen King books I've read were pretty long too, but I did not go to the length and extent of Googling page count. So my spitball answer is Stephen King and Harry Potter.
If you've read The Lord of the Rings, that's a 1,200 page book as well.
I haven't.
Lord of the Rings, no, because there's 3 sections.
No, so
3
Tolkien,
books.
It was broken up into 3 books to be published to make it easier to people to digest.
Okay, but that's how we've read them, Michael. Don't be like crapping. My God.
You can go. It was originally intended to be a single volume that was broken up into 3 parts.
That's not how it was when I read them. That's not how you buy them either.
It is. You can actually buy a copy that's like that at Barnes & Noble today.
Okay, well, I think whatever.
I haven't read that, so it doesn't matter.
Oh,
anyway.
It doesn't even matter. She hasn't read it.
That was more for Barbara because I know you have read it. But my longest book is War and Peace.
You already said that.
I know. I'm just saying it again because we've gotten so sidetracked.
No one cares.
Get back on track.
It's my turn. It's my turn. Are you going to let me answer or not? This has been a cluster.
It's not your turn. It's Lauren's turn.
It is. She just said what was hers. She says Stephen King or Harry Potter.
I missed it.
Have you been even paying attention? Oh, snap. He hasn't even been paying attention because he's just ready with this Lord of the Rings trivia that he couldn't wait to tell everybody. Anyways, that I've read would be Under the Dome by Stephen King, which was 1,074 pages.
So mine would probably be the same Stephen King if that's his longest because I read
Under the Dome. It's the longest one that I've read. I think he has Something Towers. I think a few of those might be a little bit longer, but not by much.
I haven't read
and maybe is it might be a little bit longer as well.
I read it.
So that might be your longest one.
I'll Google it at some point.
Yeah.
All right. Next category. Tell me about a book with a brilliant romance.
I put The Notebook because that is one of my favorite romance novels. And the movie for that one was actually really well done too. And then my secondary one, because I like both, but this is a more YA version, is The Fault in Our Stars. And that also had a really well done film. So, but The Notebook is I know it's super cheesy, but it's a classic romance.
I've never read the actual book. I've only obviously seen the movie.
It's so good.
Mine would be Pride and Prejudice. Call me old-fashioned, but I absolutely love Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth Bennet. And I absolutely love the movie with Keira Knightley in it as well. So...
The new one was pretty good too.
What new one?
Wasn't there? No, that was Little Women, not Pride and Prejudice. Ha!
Oh, how embarrassing!
How embarrassing!
I was going to say that is the newest one. They have done it before, but I'm pretty sure the Keira Knightley one is the latest one, and that was 10 years ago.
You're right. That is the latest. They've probably done a TV movie or something, maybe. But anyway, so this one, I looked up best romance novels to try to see there's got to be something on this list I've read. And I was looking at them and there's so many things on the list where it's I've seen the movie. I've seen the movie. I've seen the movie. I've seen so many movies based on these romance books, but I haven't read them. So
that's because your reading palette is not very diverse.
It just doesn't involve romance. But
you can have your little sci-fi books or your fantasy books with romance in it. Like Lord of the Rings has romance in it. I mean, it's not a big enough theme to say that, though. I didn't think so. There are books that I could have picked. There's one I just thought of, but it's on the list for another category, so I'm not going to say it. So I picked Romeo and Juliet. I've always enjoyed some of the classic Shakespeare. I've read Romeo and Juliet multiple times. But there's so much better. Like The Merchant of Venice has a better love story than Romeo and Juliet. I'm sorry.
I will also try. I will bite my tongue and not roast you for idolizing the romance of a double suicide.
I know.
Or a murder suicide.
At what point did I say I idolized the romance?
You said you liked it. It's a brilliant romance.
It's a classic romantic story. and
Oh.
it's one that I've read that I like, so that's what I'm going with. That's my
Once
choice.
again, Merchant of Venice is a better love story. I'll die
You
on that
are
hill.
entitled to your opinion.
Lauren,
Wrong
what's your
opinions.
Lauren? What's your choice so we can move on?
I already did
Trudy
mine.
did it.
The Notebook and The Fault in Our Stars.
This is not my night, guys.
Lauren,
This is
I've
a
missed
struggle.
you. This is so fun.
I'm just gonna have to listen to the episodes when Lauren was absent and just enjoy the fact I wasn't being roasted as often when it was just Barbara, because
I just feel
I'm just
like
getting
I'm
double
sorry.
teamed here.
Michael, you
You're
walked into that one though. I
walking
went first.
into that. Like, pay attention.
So, next category, tell me about a book you have read over and over again.
So for mine would have to be Harry Potter. I feel like it's like overdone and overplayed and overheard. Everyone knows this, but honestly, I've read the books so many times I can't even count at this point. Anytime a new book came out, I would reread the series. Anytime a movie came out, I would reread the series. When I just wanted to, I would reread the series. So growing up, it's just Harry Potter. I know I've read other series and other books, but not as much as Harry Potter.
Fair enough. I mean, that's not surprising that you picked that. So I have read Harry Potter a few times, but I have read another series more. This isn't a shocker probably to anybody, but The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, specifically The Hobbit. I feel like I've read The Hobbit. My original copy of The Hobbit fell apart from reading it so much. My original copies of Lord of the Rings are still intact. So I've read them multiple times, but not so many. So yeah, it would have to be The Hobbit.
Mine is also, unsurprisingly, the Harry Potter series. My original copy of Sorcerer's Stone, the cover is all messed up, which makes me really sad, just because I didn't care about books that much when I was younger. And then I think it was also Michael's copy, and so he then handed it down to me, and so I already got it a little bit used, and so then I read it a bunch. So anyway, I do have a new box set that I have not broken any of the spines on, and they're all perfect. But anyway, I that was like my summer. I would always reread it every summer, the series. And then outside of that, I do think that Princess Diaries, just the original Princess Diaries book by, I think it's Meg Cabot.
I also own those.
That was like the first, and this is an answer to a later question too, but I think that I read Princess Diaries, I mean, before the movie even was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I reread that book like a good amount. But as far as like series goes, I mean, Harry Potter wins.
Yeah.
Didn't you also watch that movie so many times that the DVD stopped working?
I did.
Yeah.
Santa brought us TVs for our bedrooms one Christmas, and for Michael and I, and it had a little DVD player because we were super fancy. And the first DVD that I ever bought was the Princess Diaries movie. And I had other DVDs, but I watched it every night to go to bed for like 2 years, and then eventually it just quit working.
Yeah, literally the DVD stopped working. Like it's
true.
It's impressive.
I also still probably could recite the movie, so
I'm sure you could. All right, next category. Tell me about a book that was so good you had to tell everyone you've read it. So for me on this one, there were a few that came to mind. City of Brass was my first choice because it's one we did for the podcast. It was also one that wasn't really on my radar until it was recommended to us. And so I was really excited to read that, and I have suggested it to other people to read. Name of the Wind was another one, which we also read for the podcast, and I know Barbara vehemently disagrees that this was a book that's worth telling everyone about.
I wouldn't tell everyone about it.
I really liked it. And those are the two for me. Those are the two I got really excited about and wanted to tell everybody I read.
I mean, I just put that I tell people about all of my books, so whatever I'm currently reading,
you're not wrong.
That's usually what I will tell you about if I'm enjoying it. So I'm like, oh my gosh, have you read whatever I'm currently reading? So I tend to do that. But recently, because I can't really think back if there's one that I tell everybody about other than obviously Harry Potter, because everybody knows about it. All of the Leanne Moriarty books I really like. When I started reading her with Truly Madly Guilty, but she has like 6 books that I've read, and a lot of the people that I hang out with like similar books with like the or not sci-fi, but like the kind of true crime mixed with.
What has she written that's like I feel like I've heard her name before.
So Truly Madly Guilty is the most popular one, I think. But actually, no, it's not. It's the one that they made into an HBO series.
I was going to say, I think that's it. Oh, the Big Little Lies,
Big Little Lies, yeah. So Big Little Lies was like, I think, I don't remember if it was before or after Truly Madly Guilty. But anyway, she, yeah, I remember telling a lot of people after I discovered her as an author. So
Didn't she write another one that you wanted to watch, Barbara, on like Hulu?
I already watched it. I think she's the one who wrote the scissor one, or running, or something with scissors with the teeth.
I don't
It's
know about that
the
one.
one
There's
that
Nine Perfect Strangers is the
Nine
one I was
Perfect
thinking of.
Strangers is the Hulu one, and it's amazing. The show was really well done. The book is better, but the show was really good. I enjoyed
didn't
it.
she do the one with Amy Adams as well, or is that some other author?
You talking about Dead to Me, that one?
That's not Amy Adams.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I was thinking about.
It's the one with like her mom is
Hypochondriac.
hypochondriac.
I
Sharp
don't think so.
Objects.
Yes, that's it. Sharp,
Sharp Object.
Objects. Was
No,
that
that's not her.
That's Gillian Flynn,
That's
actually.
Gillian
Who-
Flynn. So that's the same author as Gone Girl.
Gone Girl. I'm getting them confused. Oh well, oopsies.
Yeah. But like Leanne Moriarty, she has The Husband's Secret. She has Truly Madly Guilty. She's Big Little Lies, which I still haven't gotten to watch Big Little Lies because we don't have HBO.
Just watch the first season.
Yeah, and then she just came out with Apples Never Fall, and I'm excited to read it. I own it, but I just haven't had time.
Yeah, mine. So I wanted to pick one that we read for the podcast, because if not, then I would be in the same boat as Lauren. And any book I read, I'm just like, you have to read this, because I just get excited by it for other people when I want them to read a book. So because of that one, I wanted to pick one that we have read. That one would be Gideon the Ninth. I really, really like this one. I didn't think I would like it at all, actually. I was a little hesitant about reading this one, and I absolutely loved it. It's like all the genres I really enjoy in one book, which might be a little much for people. So sometimes I think this might be like more of a niche read for some people, and it's definitely not for everyone, but I absolutely loved it. I loved the humor and the world building and the characters. So
It is one, however, though, that we both thought you would like, Lauren. This is one of the books we reviewed while you were...
Gideon the Ninth. I listened to your guys's take on it. Barbara, I honestly thought that for this question you were going to put the Liba Bray one.
that one's
one
later.
that you were, okay. I was like, she strongly recommends that. I feel like I've heard you recommend it a lot, so I was like, oh, I was surprised when I didn't see that one.
I didn't want to pick the same book for multiple things, so that's why I had to kind of divvy them out.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
Next category. Tell me about a book that you really, really want to read.
So my TBR list I put that is way too long to list. The longest standing one, though, that's probably been on my TBR list the longest, and I've not read it still, it would be Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. I really
It's been on your TBR list since I recommended it to you as a child.
I know, Michael. I said it's the longest standing one because it's so intimidating to me with the length and how many books there are, and just like they're so long. And I just have so little time with a toddler now that I barely can even get the podcast books read every month, let alone try and crack open The Hobbit. So it's going to remain.
Michael, it's just one really long book and not multiple ones. So.
According to Barbara, it's 3 books. Or 4 books. Sorry, it's not that long.
Although The Hobbit is really short, I thought.
It's about 300 pages.
Oh, just kidding.
So maybe I'll tackle The Hobbit before I tackle Lord of the Rings. But those are the 2 that have been on my list for a long time, and I may never get to them, but
at least you're honest about it.
Yeah, I do genuinely want to read them. I've just not found the time or the headspace to be like, I just really want to, read 3,000 pages today.
Fair enough. They are pretty long books, or
I
one
think
extremely long book, I guess.
Right. I mean, the Hobbit is like 400. The Hobbit's around 300. I think the Lord of the Rings books are around 400 each.
I didn't think The Hobbit was that big. I've never read The Hobbit. That's the one that I haven't read. I've read, obviously, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and I guess I've been wrong and corrected, and it's just one book.
Well, I feel better it being a trilogy because that's less intimidating, even though it's the same number of pages, but split
you
up.
can get a pause, yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, everything. I want to read all the books. If I could, I would read all of them. If I had all the time in the world, that's what I would be doing. So it's just all my TBR list, and I have like a crap ton of books on my bookshelf and on my Kindle that I haven't even touched that I'm super excited for, like Cemetery Boys, Legendborn, these Violent Delights, like all of these. I have a bunch. The new Gilded, like just a lot. I just have a lot. There's just too many to name, and I want to read all of them.
So I've got my Goodreads want to read list pulled up. I'm going to start at the top. The first book. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to read it.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
There are also a ton of books on my list. For me, the ones that I picked though are, I really am focused now on trying to finish some of these like massive amounts of series that I have started reading. So like,
you've started like the first book in like 50 series and have yet to finish any of them.
Correct. Yeah. So I really want to finish the Wheel of Time series. That's probably highest on my list. I also want to finish the Stormlight Archive series. In that case, like I literally have the other books are sitting on my bookshelf, just waiting to be read. But for those of you that are familiar with both of those books, they're like each book in those series is around 1,000 pages at least. So it's a lot. It's a lot to read. But I'm looking forward to it. Those are probably the highest on my really want to read list. So,
how many reallys was that?
The right amount. Okay. All right. Next category. Tell me about a book where the characters, storyline, or author made you really angry.
So I didn't, looking over your guys' thing, I didn't take it like that. I took it like more of a negative way, not like the characters are stupid or the things that happen in the book not upset me, but like upsetting and stuff like that. I took it more just like I wasn't happy with the author. So, and it's not that the author made me angry. I just kind of made me want to roll my eyes a lot. And Michael's probably going to be so mad at me I'm saying this, but it'd be The Name of the Wind. My guy needs to learn how to write women characters better. Like, just hands down. I'm sorry. He really does. It just kind of, it was infuriating to read the like select 3 women characters and they're all just like vying for the main character's attention and being your stereotypical female characters in fantasy. And I don't like that at all. So, although the current book we're currently reading also makes me mad about how stupid these women are, but that's neither here nor there because I don't want to spoil anything for that. But
it's a fair opinion. I can't get that mad at you. I mean, I could, but it would be silly to do.
Because I'm right.
I'm not going to say that, but I think that I understand where you're coming from. I hope that when we read, because I know we're eventually going to read some of the other ones in that series, and I hope that the others are better.
Are we?
The one that I think you would particularly like, though, is the it's not even part of the main series. It's the Slower Guard of Silent Things. It's the story of Auri, if you remember her, Ari.
Yes, I do.
So since that's all
Little
about
Gollum girl,
all about a female character, I would hope that's better. We'll find out.
I don't know because he's batting 0 of 3.
I just mean because like at least like in Name of the Wind, like there weren't like the main characters weren't female characters, whereas in this they are. So I'm hoping that
just because she's the main character doesn't mean he's going to write her well either. So.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see when we read it. Well, I'm going to read that. I hope that you'll read at least the sequel to Name of the Wind, because I know there's a big demand for that for the podcast. So I'm hoping eventually you read that with me. But
I might be sick.
So I guess whenever we do that one, guys, I'll be doing that one alone because Lauren hasn't read the first one and Barbara's not going to read the second one. So it's going to be a Michael only episode that month, I guess. Let's see. For me on this one, the only book that really came to mind, because I was sitting there racking my brain, and I'm sure there are others that made me angry when I read them, but the one I'm currently reading, there's definitely has made me angry at times. And I can't really go into detail, not because I don't want to spoil it for the listeners, but because it's the book we're reading for the podcast this month and I'm further along than Barbara and Lauren. So it would be...
I mean, I literally said it's already making me angry, and I'm not even as far as you, so I can't imagine.
You're going to get it. You're going to get angrier.
Yeah, I'm sure I will.
So
I'm not to the angry part yet, I don't think.
No, you're not. And so
I'm at that's 33 or chapter 29 or something.
There's just some things that happen in the book that make me angry at the, I guess at all of them, at the author, at the characters. It's all of the above. But that's my choice. And you'll hear more about that on our next full-blown episode.
Yes, tune in.
Tune in.
So mine was, I put Room, the book, hands down, as just because I read this as show me or tell me a book where the characters make you angry. Like, character, storyline, author, whatever.
Yes.
And obviously the dude in Room that's keeping them captive is the worst human being. And yeah, that was just like the first thing that came to mind. I'm sure there's plenty that, I mean, I know there are plenty
Lovely
where I've
Bones,
been frustrated with,
thing.
like...
Did you ever read that? Like, say, like when I saw you put Room, I was like, oh my God, you're so right. Like, that made me so
I was just so pissed
Ugh,
when I read it. I was like,
yes.
oh, this made me so mad. And then, I mean, I know that there are plenty of other books where either storylines or authors made me mad, but that was just the first thing that I thought of. So,
Mhm.
All right. So moving on to the next category. It's going to be show me. I did it.
He did it. He finally did
I've been
it.
trying so hard. I made it all the way without, all this way without doing it. All right. Tell me.
I was on bated breath just waiting.
Tell me about a book that is you're considering a god tier high fantasy novel. Because of the notes that you two left, I'll start by explaining what this question's asking. So when they're asking a lot of times fantasy books, when people review them, they rate them into tiers. Some people use like the A, B, C, D, E, F system. Some people have this system, which God tier is the top tier. It's the if somebody says like, what's the best fantasy book you've ever read? Like this,
But it's
is
not
in that
even
category.
fantasy; it's high fantasy. Because and I was like, okay,
Right.
high fantasy means it's
Right.
literally in its own little universe, right? Like it's not like Harry Potter where it takes place in our world with fantasy elements.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So high fantasy, like the books that you've read, that I know you've read anyway for the podcast, like Name of the Wind would be high fantasy. Elantris is high fantasy. Lord of the Rings, that's high fantasy. Okay. So anyway, hopefully that gives you a better understanding of what the question was asking. But for me, the book that I picked that I wanted to call out for God tier high fantasy is the Way of Kings, which is book 1 in Brandon Sanderson's The Stormlight Archive series. I finally read that book this year. I've been wanting to read it forever. It's been on my shelf forever. It's just with the podcast and everything else, it's hard to find time to read a 1,200 page book, but I loved it. Like I couldn't put it down. When I had to put it down to read the podcast book we were doing for the review, I didn't want to. I wanted to keep reading it. It was amazing. I can't wait to read the rest of them. So that is my selection for a God tier high fantasy novel.
So I have not read a whole lot of high fantasy, as you know, if you listen to our normal episodes. So I put that I did not know what this question meant, but that I would say Elantris by Brandon Sanderson, since I'm pretty sure that's the only true high fantasy book I have ever read.
That's the only one I can say for sure that you've read because we read it together. So
I mean, I've not read Lord of the Rings. I've read like fantasy like Harry Potter where it's kind of there's more realism in it. But really,
so have you read any other fantasy books that take place in their own completely created world that is not like ours?
Yeah, Darkest Shade of Magic.
Oh yeah,
that's London.
Yeah, that is London.
That wouldn't be considered.
That wouldn't be considered, even though it's
no, because then you could count like Divergent or whatever, right? Because it's like
Divergent would be one though, because that doesn't. Oh, it's dystopian,
right?
It's dystopian.
That's the difference. Ooh. If you counted Darker Shade of Magic, then you'd count Harry Potter because Harry Potter takes place in our world, but in a magical place in it. So
fair enough.
So then Elantris, because I think that's the only one I can say with certainty that I've read that is high fantasy. So it has to be God tier because that's the only one.
I think you liked that book too, didn't you?
I did. I liked Elantris. I didn't at first. It was slow for me, but.
So I also didn't know what this meant, so I wasn't sure. But now that I'm thinking back, I've read a lot. So it's hard for me to choose. Like, I really, really like the Sabriel series. I'm not actually sure what the actual series is called, but the first one's called Sabriel from Garth Nix. I liked Realmbreaker that we read by Victoria Aveyard. Like, I really liked that one because it was hard to... So I guess... For me, the issue is liking high fantasy as a female. It's hard to find non-YA books that have good female characters in it. So that's why I feel I always default to YA because I feel like there's more. Like I said, Sabriel, the Realmbreaker. I was thinking of another one now. I completely forgot, but.
I think Realmbreaker is adult fantasy, actually.
No, it's not. It's YA.
Is it YA?
Yes.
No, I thought it was adult. Just kidding.
I don't think so. I believe it's YA. But anyway, so I guess those, I really enjoyed those because
they're good choices.
Yay, female characters. But there's a lot now that I was thinking back, but now they've kind of ebbed away from my mind. I can't remember them off the top of my head. A little embarrassing. But.
Fair enough. Happens to the best of us.
Yeah.
Next category. Tell me about speaking of YA books, Barbara, tell me about a YA book that is so good you lack the words to properly describe it.
I picked a bunch for this one because I couldn't pick just one. I like the Divergent series, as I just mentioned. I That was one that I just kind of like really fell into and couldn't put down. And then Bridge to Terabithia will always be a YA kind of classic for me. And then also It's Kind of a Funny Story by Ned Vizzini is good.
So here you go, Lauren. I Will Die on This Hill, the Diviner series
There
by
it
Leo
is.
Bray. The books just keep getting better and better, and it's relevant and it's beautiful, and there's so much representation, and not only in LGBTQ plus characters and POC characters that are main characters. It's amazing. Die on This Hill. Freaking love those books. Cannot describe how much I love them because of everything. And I think she's an amazing author, and that would be my pick.
I knew it was going to come up somehow.
Yep.
Had to be in the list somewhere. I'm actually going to alter my answer a little bit, or at least add something to it. So since I've just learned that
Ew, did you literally just pick Throne of Glass?
Why would you say my pick before I even get a chance to speak?
I'm sorry. I just now saw it. So anyways, I will just mute myself.
And I didn't just pick that. I was actually starting out saying, since I just learned that Realmbreaker was a YA book, I didn't realize that. Realmbreaker would be my top pick for this, followed by The Alchemist, the first book of that series, because that's all I've read of that series.
Michael
as well.
Scott would be the author, and those are amazing books as well. Great books.
Recommended to me by Barbara. And then the third one I picked is the one that Barbara already mentioned, which is the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. I enjoy them. I realized
read one.
2.
Oh, wow. So you've read
and I'd
two.
like to point out here, for the record,
I see how it is.
Barbara has never read a book by Sarah J. Maas, but she will tell you how awful she is every day of the week.
I don't need to. I've heard plenty of not great things about how she writes, and it's just not for me.
I think we have a recommendation on the list coming up that you're going to have to read one.
No.
Is that the one that I got recommended?
Yep, it sure is.
I'm actually excited about that book. Sorry, Barbara.
Is it this one or her other one that was recommended?
It's the other one.
Yeah, that one's a hard pass for me.
Which one are we talking about?
Her other series. She has a few, I think.
I know, but I can't remember what it was called.
Like Court of Thrones.
Oh, yeah.
Court of Roses and Thorns or something like that.
I don't
Thorns
know,
and Roses, maybe.
Something with courts in it.
What's the author's name?
Sarah J. Maas.
A Court of
those were my picks for this
and
one.
Roses, yeah. I'm actually excited to read that. Sorry, Barbara. Sorry. It sounds good.
I'm going to have to parlay.
It can be just a Michael and Lauren pod.
Yeah, there we go. Brother and sisterly love. I will bow out of that one. Or I will read it and just hammer the crap out of it and give it really bad scores and just
If you've never read her, though, how do you know you're going to hate it?
She doesn't.
That's not true. I've read from other people that have told me it's not great books. I've got friends, outside of you two. Rude.
Well, we'll see how bad she bashes it when we actually read the book. But anyway, those were my picks for that. Lauren, what were your picks for this one?
I already went.
She already read.
No,
Michael. She went first.
Divergent, Bridge to Terabithia, Funny Story.
Oh my god!
I thought that Barbara went first.
No,
wow.
son. No.
You just don't listen when I talk.
No, Lauren. It's not just you. It's people in general. He's just so in like Michael world that it's only his voice that's important.
So
to
Lauren went first, is what you're saying?
Yes,
she sure did. Yeah.
All right. Moving on to the next category, then. Tell me about a book that was so well written it nearly brought you to tears.
I would have to agree with Michael, and I kind of feel like I'm going to spoil it, so I don't know if you want to go first on this one, because I don't want to take your thunder here.
Sure, I'll go first on this one. So I wrote down, all I wrote was All the Things by V.E. Schwab, because V.E. Schwab is such a good writer, and they're just amazing. Like, it's not even, like, the stories are amazing, the characters are amazing. She could probably write a story about, like, the most mundane thing and make it interesting because of how she writes. So yeah, that's what I put.
Yeah, so I didn't want to steal your thunder, but I would also have to agree with you. She has a way with words. I don't know how to describe it. It's like poetry for my ears, but not poetry, because poetry is a thing, but in book form, and just the way she paints a picture and the way the imagery, and I just, like, if I could marry her words, I would, type thing, like, I fell in love with her words, and I would probably cry if I met her and just be like, just talk to me. I think I would love it, type thing. That's how much her words are just very beautiful.
Yeah, I had 3 choices for this one. All of which literally, I don't know if I actually was brought to tears, but where it just like sits with you and you're like, man, the writing is just so well done. So Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. Really like his writing. Fight Club by Chuck Palahniuk. His just some of the quotes in there like stick with you, and just the way that it's written, and then like the plot and the storyline and the characters just really it stays with you. And then also A Man Called Ove. I don't know if you guys have read Frederick Bachman at all, but
I have heard of it though.
He has a way of writing that's just beautiful, and just so easy to read. And just I've read Man Called Ove, and then I also read the second one that he came out with. But I just really like the words that he chooses and the way that he describes things. He's really descriptive.
That's the problem with these lists. It's really hard to pick just one.
I would.
If we were actually doing the TikTok, you'd have to, right? Because you couldn't be like.
I mean, I guess you could. You could be like 20 in your hand at a time.
Yeah. True.
I agree with Lauren too. The V. Schwab's an obvious choice, but for me, Chuck Palahniuk is too. His writing style and just the way that he writes all of his books. It's I have similar feelings about him that I do about V. Schwab. So solid choice.
You also want to marry his words? I agree. Yeah.
I would marry his words. Yeah. He's a really, I mean, everything that I've read of his is just really
I've actually never read anything of his.
Michael, you need to break up with her.
I've got a bunch on the bookshelf she could read if she wants to. All right. So speaking of Barbara, this next category is perfect for her. Tell me about a book with a relationship that made your cold, unalive heart feel
What
something.
are you saying? Are you saying I have a cold, unalive heart? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, why are we calling it an unalive instead of dead?
Cold, unalive heart. That's how the TikToker phrased it.
Okay, I see.
Cold, dead heart.
So for me, I took this broader than just romantic relationships. Hopefully that's okay.
It's not. No, it's strictly romantic.
Okay, well then I guess I didn't do it right. But I went with familial relationship. I'm going to choose another one that we did for the podcast called "We Are the Lucky Ones." I really enjoyed that book. There were a lot of parts in the book that made my cold, unalive heart feel something. I definitely choked up and teared up at points in that novel. It was a very good story. There's a lot of very emotional things in the book as well. So it was an easy choice for me from a recent one for sure.
I picked It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover, and I like several of her books. But that one in particular has lots of different relationship stuff that's happening that's complicated. But it's a complicated, twisty love story, I guess. But anyway, that makes my cold, unalive, not dead heart.
There you go.
Unalive, not dead. So I took it in a romantic way, I guess, than what Michael did. But I would say Cress, which is the third book in the Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Mayer.
La 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 la.
And I'm not gonna spoil it because you guys have it, and so yeah, I can't say much because I don't want to spoil anything for you guys. But there's certain stuff in that one, and then in the following book, Winter, that just made me my little 12-year-old undead at the time moment heart squeal and love. But yes, that would be mine.
So next category, tell me about a book that simply brought joy to your soul.
Honestly, any book I'm currently reading brings me joy because I just get to do something I really love. I love to read, and so unless it's a really crappy book or something that's not bringing me joy when I'm reading it, then I would just have to say just all the books I'm currently reading, all the books I have read. I am a book nerd. I love books, so all the books.
So for me on this one, I picked it's kind of an author again instead of just a book. So two authors actually that come to mind. So anything by James Patterson, anything by not anything by Brad Thor, but specifically the Scott Horvath series. So we've talked about this before. My guilty pleasure reads that I just enjoy reading just to do it is the Alex Cross series or the Women's Murder Club series, both Patterson books, and then the Scott Horvath series. So what's funny is they're not yay, it's such a happy book. There's very intense stuff going on. It's usually a some sort of violent political thriller or something, or a serial killer or something crazy like that. But I really enjoy both of those authors' writings, and it's an easy book to fall into for me.
Yeah, I also like James Patterson books. Not as much as you, Michael, but the ones that I have read, I've enjoyed. I just picked The Art of Racing in the Rain by Garth Stein, and it brought me like so much pain and also so much joy. But yeah, if you haven't read it, it's one of those dog books. So
Oh, man, that book.
I think I made you read it, didn't I, Barbara?
No,
Or was
I
it?
didn't.
Did you make me?
I
read
made
it?
you read it.
Okay, I knew it was one that we.
So I love this book, but it does not bring. So it does bring me joy, but so my childhood dog had literally just passed away the day before, and my mom took me shopping at Dylan's randomly, and Dylan's had like good deals on books, and my mom like saw this book and like was like, hey, I think this might be a good book for you. Little did she know. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was a great book, but this is the only book where I can remember crying like a little baby the whole time, like throughout the book and that parts of the book. And so I have a very distinct memory with this book. I absolutely love that book, but I can't ever read it again because it brings up that kind of traumatic experience that happened. But I absolutely love this book. It's a great book. Absolutely love it. But it
was a really good book, and it was really sad and happy and all of the feels, but things, it's just the one that came to mind first, so.
Great book. Have you seen the movie? I want to, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if I would like want to disturb the image of that book that I have with the movie.
Well, I'll never be able to watch the movie or read Marley and Me ever again because I watched that about a month before our childhood golden retriever passed away, so I can't even like see the preview of the movie. I can't, and I liked that book a lot, but that's similar for me.
Right.
So.
I watched Marley and Me like 2 weeks after Comet, our childhood golden retriever, passed away. And like I was my freshman year of college, and I remember this vividly because I was watching it in my dorm room. So we're sitting on like this free couch from the 70s watching this movie. My roommate comes home and I'm sitting on the couch just like, not like, oh, a tear in my eye, like sobbing, sobbing watching this movie. And he walked in, he's like, what is wrong? What's going on? What's going on? But yeah, so yeah, the trauma is real with the dog books for us dog lovers.
I also tend to, in movies and books, I tend to be a lot more emotionally attached to the animals than the humans.
Yes.
So I will like. I'm trying to think. I Am Legend. I cried more when that dog scene was happening than any of the people that got blasted in that
Same
movie.
here. I didn't even care. Like I was like, the whole human race could die. I don't care. But that dang dog. Are you kidding me? Like every time we start a movie and there's a dog, I turn to Michael and go, I swear to God, Michael, if this dog dies in this movie, I am walking out. I am not watching this.
That was the best part though about watching John Wick, the first one.
Really, that was Barbara. The best part, Michael.
Well, no, only because. Like for those of you that haven't seen John Wick, I guess they kill his dog like at the beginning of the movie, and because they kill his dog, he goes on like this massive killing spree. And I think Barbara felt a little vindicated at the end of the movie since like 85 to 100 people died because this puppy got killed. But
I did, but that doesn't bring the puppy back, Michael. The puppy's still dead.
It doesn't, but at least the puppy was granted some vengeance.
Well, I won't be watching John Wick.
I think Barbara, it's your turn to talk about your book for this one. We kind of got sidetracked on Lauren's book.
I went first on this one.
She talked already.
What is wrong with you today, man?
I'm sorry. I thought we were on the last question for some reason.
No, we're not.
I apologize.
You hadn't even said the last question, so how can we be on it?
Please cut that part out.
No, this is all staying in so everyone can see how bad you were at this.
Poor Michael.
Tell me about a book that made you love reading in the first place. I do a lot of reading, and I don't remember a time where I ever didn't like reading. My mom, not just my mom, Lauren and I's mom, definitely made an effort when we were little to get us into reading, and obviously we both love reading and are now on a podcast about reading, so it must have worked. But I was trying to think of books from my childhood that I remember reading, like books reading by myself, not books with her, and there were two that came to mind, and the first one was I had to look this up because I couldn't remember the title, but I could vividly like see the book in my hand. It was called The Kid Who Ran for President. It was a 2-part series. The other one was The Kid Who Became President. So spoilers, I guess, if you wanted to read that children's book, he wins, he becomes president. And then the other series was the Nate the Great mysteries. I don't know if either of you are familiar or have ever heard of those.
I've heard of it, never
really,
read them.
Michael. We used to read those together.
Yeah, I figured you. Yeah. So
You
Nate the Great
I don't know if I'm familiar.
Nate the Great is he's a little kid that solves mysteries, and it's probably part of the reason between that and the Hardy Boys why I enjoy reading that stuff today. So yeah, those are some of the books that got me into reading.
I put, as I mentioned earlier, Princess Diaries by Meg Cabot. I can pin it back to that as the first book. Like he said, Mom did a really good job of getting us into reading, so we always read and were read to. But that was like the first book that I picked out on my own, read cover to cover on my own without like her picking it out or her reading it or it being recommended by anybody. And I was like 7 or something. And, yep, that was what kind of did it for me. And then obviously clearly I went a little overboard and, ran the DVD into the ground, and my book probably also was all messed up and wrinkled, but set me off on a lifetime of reading.
So I can't remember a time I didn't enjoy reading. I've always loved to read. And I would have to say I've got really like fond memories of reading the Seventh Tower series by Garth Nix, because I was really young, and I don't know if we still do, I'm assuming we still do book fairs in like elementary school and
Yes.
all that jazz, right? Okay.
Yes, elementaries and middles.
Yeah, so my mom had given me lunch money to buy food, lunch, and it was the week of the book fair, and she made a mistake of giving me cash instead. And I think I pretty much convinced her because I was like, "Oh, Mom, they're having this amazing food that I have to just eat." Like, she should have known it was a lie because it's not a thing back then. Cafeteria food was not great, and she gave me cash, and instead of buying my lunch, I think that was supposed to last me for a while, I bought 2 books, I believe, and they were the first 2 series in the Seventh Tower series by Garth Nix, and I never looked back, and she got so mad at me that I spent money on books instead of lunch money, and I own all the rest of the series, so I guess she wasn't that mad at me, but yeah, so that would be it, because I absolutely loved those books. I did like book reports on them. I'm pretty sure I still have those like somewhere in my mom's like drawers of things.
That's totally something that I would have done with the lunch money.
Yeah.
Except for, I feel like we would bring home the little packets, like the little book fair booklet things that they give you in advance. And then I would like circle
all the ones you want.
And then Mom would probably buy that was like the one thing that they weren't like I would ask for toys, or we would ask for electronics, or we would ask for like whatever, and she would say no, and they'd be like, you don't need that. But if we ever asked for books, she pretty much bought them.
Yep.
So we were kind of spoiled in that regard. So like we would bring
Definitely
home the book fair things, and like I think maybe, I mean, if I would have selected the whole dang packet, she probably wouldn't have bought it, but we usually just picked like our top 3 or whatever, and she rarely said no to books. So we were that also helped foster our reading.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't want to discredit my mother. It's not that she was mad that I bought books, is the fact that I used money.
I just think it's funny that I totally would have done the same thing.
Like I literally starved myself that day instead of like replenishing my body with nourishment. I replenished my mind.
I'm sure your mom would have given you money for the books too.
Yeah, because I think like my teacher called and said Barbara didn't eat. Like, did you not give her? And my mom like flipped out because like the school was like investigating or something. I don't remember like how she found out. Probably because like I wasn't very smooth with the fact that I was like starving when I got home. Was like, I need sustenance, mother. So, but yeah, like. My thing always was like my sister would use like she would ask for clothes and I would never ask for clothes. I would always just like buy books, and my mom's like, you need to like dress yourself, woman, like you need clothes for school and all this stuff. And I was like, no, I'd rather buy books. That was me.
Barbara's wearing pants that are now like capris because
pretty
she
much
bought too many books.
Sounds about right. Barbara still can't resist at least one book on her trip to Barnes & Noble.
I can too.
I can't.
I try.
We all try and we all fail. It's okay. All right, so that's it. We got to the end of our categories. Hopefully, y'all enjoyed the book talk episode. I hopefully you guys are enjoying these book talk bonuses.
I mean, they probably enjoyed this one because we just went off on tangents about things. We went off on good old Mikael over here for not remembering that people went.
If you've missed me being roasted alive, then this is the episode for you.
This is going to be our most listened to bonus podcast ever
see.
because
of
all
happens.
the roast of Michael, and they're going to be like, "You guys have to do it again."
We'll see what happens.
I'm going to laugh if that's the case. I'm going to laugh.
As always, thank you guys so much for listening. We are Badass Literature Society. Hopefully you liked the episode. If you did, let us know. Leave us a rating or a review wherever you listen to podcasts. We really appreciate that for those of you that have. Also, if you're not already, follow us on Instagram and Facebook. In both places, our handle is @BadassLitPod. We would love to hear from you if you've got a book you want us to talk about on this show, or just something else you'd like to let us know. We'd love to hear from you guys. So send us a message, leave us a comment, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I hear Barbara really wants recommendations by Sarah Moss.
I don't.
She does.
I do not.
Somebody should recommend the entire Throne of Glass series. That'd be great.
Oh my gosh, I would murder you. I would find you. I am very good at finding you. I will find you and I will murder you.
And on that happy, joyous note, we'll see y'all next month. I'm Michael.
This is Barbara.
And I'm Lauren.
Bye.
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 These days, more authors are including mental health content in their books. But do you ever wonder how accurate some of this stuff is?
Or do you ever read something where you know the author just gets it?
I'm Elise.
And I'm Priscilla.
And we are Novel Feelings, a podcast where we discuss mental health issues in fiction novels.
We are psychologists and book lovers, and we have a lot of opinions.
So look for Novel Feelings wherever you get your podcasts.
Now, back to your show.